business owners tend to ruminate on ideas, concepts, strategies, and afflictions. And I think we want to give you guys some takeaways of not only anecdotally the mistakes that we've made in the last 20 years of operating our business, but also like new strategies that I feel like we've used ever since we hired a business coach, which was about 5 years ago. Does that sound about right? All right. So why don't you kick things off?
I think anyone running a business, you're fighting fires all day. And when you get home, your mind starts to function like a loop. The thoughts about what happened, what is going to happen,
Right,
and how you feel about those scenarios sort of continue to play on repeat.
do you ever find yourself in the shower, whether it's at night or in the morning?
Singing.
And in the shower, you're walking your mind through either decisions or actions or inactions from the day. And you're thinking about what are all the possible worst case scenarios, right? Outcomes of that action or inaction during the day. I feel like the shower is a very dangerous place.
Is it? I don't think so. I think that if you're not going through all of those scenarios in your mind, in the shower or on the toilet, you don't belong as an entrepreneur, and you certainly don't belong in a high-level position at any sort of company.
Interesting. Because one of the tools
I think we're all cousins. We're all related when it comes to these afflictions.
You know, one of the tools that I've realized or been ushered into accepting as a tool to becoming more mindful, right, is like setting specific times where I can improve like my focus on mindfulness, right? And not letting, you were talking about like this loop, this death loop, right? Of thinking about things just in perpetuity. It's like I've almost been able to acquire a new skill, a tool, which is like, I'm going to set some time to think about these things, and I'm not going to let my mind venture off into these like very dangerous, right? Like, these very dangerous
waters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, dangerous is kind of a strong word. I think we can call them unproductive.
Well, it's deep water, it's black water. And a lot of times these ideas or even people sending you messages at work, after hours, these ideas and people have a tendency to pull you in to that deep, dark water. So I feel like setting some boundaries, that's like the first actionable thing that you can do as a business owner, right? Is like put aside your phone when you get home, tend to your responsibilities as a parent, right? As a husband or a father, a wife, a mother, right? And focus on the now. Focus on the now. That's a skill that I've learned. Otherwise, you do get into that death loop, right? Which is just thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. And your mind's prescribing action or inaction and what the results might be, right? From those actions or inactions, but you're never really solving anything. It's akin to running on a treadmill, right? In perpetuity.
Yeah, I think one of the tools that everybody talks about in battling this overthinking is exercise. Right?
Absolutely.
So you may want to go spend some time with your family, but you may need to go outside for a brisk walk or a run, right? Or maybe go lift some weights, right? Go run up a hill, right? That clears the mind better than anything else you can imagine.
It's funny. I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast recently with Cat Williams, and Cat Williams was talking about how all the lessons that we've learned as humans is all adaptations from what we've learned from interacting with animals. I think as it relates to what you're talking about, which is getting your energy out, it's not just the sort of releasing of, what do you call it when you exercise? What's the word I'm looking for, Lev? Endorphins. So it's not just about releasing endorphins, which like give you that natural high. But if you've ever looked at a dog, right before a dog goes to bed, what does that dog do?
Runs around in circles.
Why do you think that is?
Calms its mind.
Yeah, it calms the mind. It recenters the dog. And
what a weird behavior.
Right. But don't reject what the animal kingdom does. Instead, embrace it, because we are cousins of animals, right? We are distant cousins of animals. And so learn from what they do and adapt it. Don't just think like, all right, I'm super stressed out. Now I'm going to lay down and I'm going to get mindfulness. I'm going to get sleep. I'm going to get rest. You won't. Invest in exercise, because you will get mindfulness that way.
Yes, you're saying that like a dog, humans have a physiological reset button.
Yeah.
And it requires you to get your heart rate up.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Even for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Do that.
Another way that I think that you can, I feel like, that you can, what do you call it? Sort of streamline decision-making processes, right? We talked about mindfulness. We talked about exercise. We talked about so many things already, but I think the most basic thing, because you were talking about the ruminating thoughts and the sort of the loop that's on your mind. It's like listening to a record on record. Nobody knows what a record is, but everybody hopefully gets that example, right? You've got this idea in your head. You said you're on the toilet. I said you're in the shower. Whatever the case may be, wherever you do your deep pensive thinking. But I think the one thing that, that small business owners fail to do is take action. I think we learned this valuable business lesson, which is your success is less dependent upon making the right decision, but instead is dependent upon making a decision, taking action, right? I think that's so important.
And I think we're so good at that. Right. If you examine the last 20 years and the enormous quantity of pivots that a business is required to get from 0 to 1 million, 1 million to 5 million, 5 to 10, and so on.
Right.
You have to break a business before you're able to scale that next hurdle.
Yeah.
And reassemble it in a completely new way.
Yeah. I mean, life in and of itself is just a series of decisions, right? Whether it's your personal life or your business life. And so failing to make a decision results in, I feel like, catastrophic missteps. Failing to make that decision, right? And so action, in my opinion, can often clarify what next steps exist, what next steps you should take. Failure is just a decision. It's not the decision. It's not the last decision. And just because one door closes doesn't mean another door won't open. So I feel like, stalling yourself out by getting into this trap of being on this treadmill in perpetuity with these ruminating thoughts, just take action, right?
And it can be the smallest action you can imagine. Even taking one baby step towards some objective will help you understand whether that road is the right road or not.
Yeah. And it's reflecting on, and this is another example of what you can do to kind of streamline decision-making processes, which is like, look at the history and the chronology of past decisions that you've made. There were times where you were coming home to your wife or your husband and you were talking about business. You're like, I'm done. I'm cooked. It's over. That happened, and yet you're still alive. I love that one comedian, Ken Jeong, and he's like, but did you die? I love saying to business owners, right, when they're like, you'll never believe it, we just got sued, or, whatever. But did you die? No. So again, in trying to streamline decision-making, look at the chronology and the history of your past trials and tribulations. And look how you made decisions, you got out of a situation, you pivoted, and everything's fine, right? Yeah. You do have the skills, you do have the strength, You do have the credentials, the CV, if you will, the resume of being in tough spots and getting yourself out of those tough spots.
Yeah. And most of the decisions, most of the thoughts that a business owner has revolve around just a few things. What are they going to revolve around? Number one, employees or partners.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, money. And money could mean a number of different things. Maybe money means a project that you're thinking about investing in and you just can't pull the trigger, or a project that you've already sunk some costs into and you are not sure if you should stop doing that.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine really much beyond that in a business, right? Most decisions fall into those categories.
The constraints and opportunities are always the same thing, right? It's employees and hiring, right? And then it's capital, how to deploy.
And we can relate. We understand that these decisions can be complicated and complex. And so don't leave it up to yourself. Go out and get some advice. You've got to have a trusted partner or confidant. Maybe it's your wife. Maybe it's someone else in your industry, right? We recommend having a business coach, right? Having someone on retainer that you can call and ask some difficult questions. And number three, the one that we just discussed in a recent digital marketing podcast, ChatGPT. ChatGPT can probably provide some brilliant advice along these lines.
Yeah, I think you're just hitting out of the park with this one, Dean. I think, in business, you tend to feel like you're the only one that can make either the good or bad decisions for the business. And so you're limited on resources of who you can talk to. I would argue that you should seek outside counsel when you're stuck and you're trying to make like good decisions. Seek outside counsel. You gave the example, I think, which is brilliant. Either hire a business coach, right? What sports team do you know that's not run by a coach, right?
Not a good one.
Yeah. I've never heard of a professional sports team that's not ran by a coach. Don't think that your business is not a team and that it doesn't need to be led by a coach. You are not the coach. You are the CEO. There is a big difference. And so my advice, again, for streamlining decisions is just like what Dean said, is seek outside counsel, but don't seek advice from too many people, because I think that can be dizzying and can lead, again, to the whole, ruminating thoughts, treadmill of life, which you're stuck on. And I just think you end up ignoring your gut. And I think having too many options can be confusing at times. So it's like that Dean said, which is like, use GPT, which I think is a great example. Use a business coach, seek input, but not too much.
And, half of you that we're talking to got into business for yourselves because you don't like authority. You don't like people telling you what to do. Get over your bullshit.
Yeah.
Stop that.
Yeah.
Right. You don't have to value other people's opinions more than your own, but you've got to seek counsel and you've got to put some weight behind the opinions of people who are more experienced than you,
right,
and who've been through these exact moments. You think you're special because you got to 10 million in revenue. You think you're special because you got to 100 million in revenue. You think you're special because you sell a product to consumers between the ages of 20 and 30 in Western states. You're not. There's nothing special about you.
Yeah. Another example that I would give to people as a coach, and I think this is a brilliant example, which is like, too many people feel like everything has to be perfect. Like, how many business owners have you ran into, be it, specifically small business owners, who like think everything in their process either needs to be born out of perfection, needs to be perfected, needs to be able to be seen as perfected from the outside looking in, or even the inside looking out. Like, if they have this idea and it's too nascently developed, either the people buying the product won't buy it, or the people selling the product, right, won't adapt and feel confident. I think too many business owners just need to embrace imperfection. If you can get an idea 70% of the way, it can be sold and it will be bought. Like, I go on vacation all the time. I vacation a lot, and I see what these resorts look like from the outside looking in. it looks pretty darn perfect. If you want to get myopic, you can get myopic and you can start to see all the flaws, right? You go to the hotel lobby, the person there isn't perfect with the systems and processes and protocols. You're waiting too long for car service. Your room isn't everything's clean but the bathroom, right? That's not going to sink an enterprise. Anything can be salvaged. Anything can be saved. My opinion, embrace imperfection. Don't be afraid to rush out a product or a service because you feel like it's not ready.
Yeah. And as a couple of guys who funded tens of thousands of small businesses over the years, we can tell you that the highest number of perfectionists are found in the smallest businesses.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think, reducing the pressure for perfect outcomes will alleviate overthinking. I wrote this down. Reducing the pressure for perfect outcomes can alleviate overthinking. Put out the product. If it's 70% of the way, you're good. Somebody will sell it with confidence and somebody will buy it. I guarantee you.
Yeah, and brilliantly, the same applies to employees, right? If you're waiting to hire someone who's going to fill 100% of your need and all your wants and all your bells and whistles and check boxes, you're going to keep waiting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
75% of you is more than good enough.
I think the last takeaway, and I know this is kind of a shorter episode, but the last piece of advice I would give to a small business owner from a coaching perspective on how to streamline decision-making processes is a very simple one. It's the 5-5-5 rule. And if you're not familiar with the 5-5-5 rule, super simple. Will it matter in 5 days? Will it matter in 5 months? Will it matter in 5 years? That's a perfect way to relieve stress and execute on a decision. Would you agree, disagree with that statement?
I think 5% of the things that you worry about every day will matter in 5 days.
Yeah. I think the most difficult decision that you have to make, whether it be an opportunity or an obstacle, the inertia, the momentum of that singular decision vanishes within 30 days. I've met so many people in business where they're like, this lawsuit's the end of me, or if I can only execute on this decision, everything will be solved. And then you see them at dinner or a conference or on a vacation or something, and you're like, hey, remember when you told me about that one lawsuit? Or, hey, remember when you said you were going to launch this one product and it was going to revolutionize the world? And they're like, yeah, I don't even know what happened. Gosh, I haven't thought about that in 6 months. And so it's just realizing the true scale of both opportunities and also potential defeat. You've got this brilliant thing that's in Wimbledon that you always talk about, right? But just realizing that.
Yeah, that sign above Wimbledon from that Rudyard Kipling poem, If.
Yeah.
It says, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same.
Yeah, you should. Because in the end, ultimately, none of this matters, right? None of this matters. That one decision that you are ruminating on won't matter. It won't matter in 5 days. It won't matter in 5 months. And it won't matter in 5 years. My best advice to you, as we've just given you for the last, 15, 20 minutes, is take action. That's the best one. You can, try to be mindful. You can try to make decisions at the right time. You can use the 5-5-5 rule. You can, embrace imperfection, right? There's so many examples that we've given you, but the best example is just take freaking action. Make the decision today. It does not need to be the right decision. It just needs to be a decision.
And always rely on that physiological reset button we all have, which is called exercise.
All right, man. That's all we got for you. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you in the next episode. Adios.